Welcome back to the News Hour on TRT World. Of course, you know that global travel has been decimated by COVID-19. As countries try to control the spread of the disease, they've either closed their borders or introduced harsh restrictions on those who are allowed to enter. For holidaymakers and business people, the measures are often so punitive, trips just aren't worth making. There is some encouragement in a study from the UK, which has found the majority of people who've had the virus are immune from catching it for at least another 5 months. The most important development, of course, the discovery of vaccines. So what are the chances of international travel picking up again soon? One idea to get it moving quickly is a vaccine or immunity passport. Well, the International Air Transport Association, IATA, covers nearly 300 airlines and more than 80% of the world's flights. It hopes to have an almost ready-made solution because it has what's called a travel pass app. Details in a moment. Health and tech groups are also working to create a digital vaccination passport in the expectation travellers will be required to present proof they've received an injection. And governments are working on their own digital immunisation certificates. Estonia signed an agreement with the WHO to develop one. Amongst EU countries, well, certainly already the Hungarian and Danish governments say they have said they're considering asking visitors to show their vaccination status. Israel, well, it has an app for people who have been vaccinated in Israel and are leaving the country. The idea is that when you arrive, you won't have to quarantine. But vaccine passports pose important questions, not least about data privacy. There are arguments about such a scheme dividing people into categories according to their health status, and as well as opening up the door to further health tracking. Well, for more on this, we are joined from London by the Simon, it says travel writer. I consider you a travel guru. That's Simon Calder. Mario Ottiglio is a global health policy expert and managing director of the High Lantern Group. And obviously, Mario, you enjoy the comfort of indoors. Simon is standing in the cold in London. Okay, Simon, let's start with you. So tell us about the idea of vaccine or immunity passports. What do you think? Good, bad, somewhere in the middle?
Well, I think it's going to be absolutely essential. But as from your brilliant introduction there, you've just effectively said how much confusion, lack of international agreement and cohesion there is. And the travel industry here, and I'm talking to you from, frankly, empty London, normally would have loads of tourists and business visitors here. They're not here because of all the restrictions. And the way I see it going, and I take into account all the privacy problems and so on, is that it's going to become like yellow fever if you are going to certain parts of Africa or Latin America or Asia. You are expected to have a vaccination and produce a certificate. That's going to exclude a lot of people. But it's essential, I'm hearing from the travel industry here, to have some system so that so far 3 million people in the UK who've been vaccinated can use that as proof that they could go abroad without causing a problem to the destination country. And of course, as you've been discussing, the fact that some people who've had the virus may well be immune, that could also be counted. But at the moment, it's all piecemeal, and the travel industry is effectively going through a third winter in a row in the Northern Hemisphere with almost nobody traveling, and job losses pretty much mounting by the day among airlines, hotels and travel companies.
Yeah, absolutely. The potential discriminatory nature of such a scheme is definitely something worth considering. Simon, back to you in a moment. Mario Ottiglio, tell us about the health issues that would be uppermost in your mind if such a document existed to allow people to travel.
Good morning, and thank you for having me. Yeah, I guess, we should be more than health. I mean, there is a health issue, but there is also an ethical and policy issue here. Maybe we could start with, because we should be open to new ideas to allow people to come back to normal, right? Anything is good in this moment. But a note of caution, really, there are quite a few complex challenges. In my view, if this becomes a complementary measure to the others that are already in place, and that we are already familiar with, that is a viable scenario. But if we intend to use this tool as the only enabler for people, or the preferred enabler for people to travel, well, I mean, we risk to go down quite of a slippery slope, because, you see that governments are doing whatever they can to encourage and motivate the people to get vaccinated as quickly as they can. But let's not forget about vaccine hesitancy. It was already there before. And it's even a more urgent issue to resolve in view of the coronavirus vaccine. When we had a normal world, 2019, WHO was putting vaccine hesitancy as one of the top 10 global health issues, right? And now with this debate about the vaccines, the rush for it, and all the different theories around the coronavirus, hesitancy has become probably the top one priority to resolve. We always know that there are people that will not get vaccinated because of political choice, because of personal choice. But there will be also people that cannot vaccinate it because of some conditions they have, because they are not in the priority list, because they are marginalized, because there is no equitable access. What do we do with these people? So I'll leave you with this question and probably other points later.
Okay, Mario, let me put one more question to you before I go back to Simon. I get the vaccine hesitancy issue, but this scheme would mean that if you haven't had a vaccination, you literally wouldn't be allowed to travel. Let's use me as an example. Let's say I have a vaccination, I go to country X, I actually pick up the coronavirus, and I don't test positive by the time I return to my country of origin. But I have the coronavirus, but I don't get the disease COVID-19 because I've had the vaccination. But I'm breathing over people, and I might give them coronavirus. It's literally unproven if a vaccine will stop you giving the virus to other people. So how can a scheme like this work when there's so much uncertainty?
Absolutely. I mean, COVID immunity is still a mystery, right? So there are some data that are, we're basically learning as we, on the job here. So, and also there is a lot of, testing is unreliable. The volume of testing is unfeasible. There are a lot of challenges from the health point of view. It's what I said before, right? We should not create social stratification. We should not create a tool that is divisive in some sort. And actually, if we don't have more data, to your point, we don't want even to create another public health hazard in a certain extent. Somebody mentioned the yellow fever example before. We've gone through that, in a little bit earlier in the history of humanity, where basically lack of immunity was dictating whether people could marry, could work, could be forced into slavery, how much they were worth. We don't want to go on that track. I mean, of course, we are not. Society is different now, and the set of values is different. But of course, some dystopic scenario could come up exactly and could even harm the economy even more, I would say.
Sure. Simon, you've been off camera while Mario's been talking, but I've been seeing you nodding a lot. What are your thoughts?
Well, yes, it's a terrible ethical issue. But on the other hand, each country and also even individual airlines, the Australian airline Qantas is saying, we don't want you on board unless you've been vaccinated. Every entity is able to put in its own rules. And my sense is that we will get, particularly from countries such as Australia, from New Zealand, from some of the Asian countries where they've dealt fantastically well with the coronavirus problem, they will put in stipulations like nobody here, no tourists unless you have had a vaccine. But gradually, as hopefully we get the virus under control, as vaccination spreads around the world, we will see that more and more countries, particularly tourism-dependent countries, all the way from Portugal, Spain, Italy, across to Greece and Turkey, will be more open to people without vaccinations. But it's going to raise an awful lot of difficult issues. At the moment, the big problem that I'm hearing from the travel industry is very simply that blanket government restrictions are stopping everybody traveling, whereas there are an increasing number of people who could travel without posing a threat to other countries' populations.
Simon, it's only a few days ago that finally the British government did what many people in the UK have been asking for, is to have people tested either before they arrive at a British airport or once they arrive at that airport. Do you think it's going to become commonplace that most of the countries in the world will say, look, for the next 6 months, 12 months, you will have to have a PCR test upon arrival or before your departure to our nation?
I would agree with about 75% of that. In fact, the scheme has proved so difficult to implement. It was due to start today. It's not now starting until Monday. And that gives you some idea of the complexity involved. At the same time as people are working on vaccines, there are also people working on tests. And if you can have a test at the airport before you get on an aircraft, that takes maybe 30 minutes and gives you a result. And it really just becomes part of the airport experience, just like aviation security and all the other things we really don't like about traveling, but we put up with. Then I think things would be workable. But at the moment, PCR tests, which could require 48 hours in advance and a cost of $100 or more, they look very, very cumbersome to restart tourism at scale.
Simon, try $350 at a laboratory in Watford for a PCR test. Personal experience. Simon Calder and Mario Ottiglio, thank you both so much. Really, really instructive to hear both sides of the argument, the travel argument and the medical argument. Take care.